Talk Show is brought to you by
Organissima, New York. Your exotic skin, hair, and beauty source, and your one-stop shop for all your natural and organic skin and hair care, featuring authentic organic Moroccan oil and prickly pear seed oil and much more. Bringing you only the best, straight from the source and proudly produced in the USA. So what are you waiting for? Shop today at www.organissima.com. Organissima, New York. Your beauty is our duty.
Folks, welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the NBC network, with your host, Hurricane H. New day, new show, new topic, new guest. An important topic this week is actually really talking about, food, nutrition, all the good stuff that we need in our lives. I have with me an author, worldwide, international renowned author. She's been featured on TV, radio, different, she's all over, the map. She's been, out there for many decades doing the work, helping people really, really get healthier and really dealing with a topic I think we're all guilty of, and that is emotional eating. I think I've been there. I can say that. And, if you're listening and watching today, you probably have been somewhere, someone, or someone who has been in a phase of their life where they went there. And she is an emotional eating expert, and her main focus is to help people. And today we want to shed a light on some of that, the emotional, driver behind it, I guess the circumstances, all the stuff. So without any further ado, that would be Tricia Nelson. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It is my pleasure and an honor. And really, I love when I have authors with me, because you guys put a lot of work and a lot of time to put these things together. So, and you put them out in the world. And the show today may not cover it all, but I think we'll cover the necessary steps, and hopefully we'll give them, a good feed and also promote, the idea of the book. So get the book eventually and see what's in it. There's got to be more in there than we're going to cover today. So we have about, a very crunch time. So today is going to be a very intense, show. Let's do this. So Tricia, the background. I know you've done this for a while, and something drove you to do this. So let's start with that, your history, how it all started, and what drove you to this particular topic. And then we can talk about the book and everything else.
Sure. This is very personal to me, this topic. I grew up as an emotional eater, so I definitely had issues with food from a young age. I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to serve food to other people. The only part I didn't like about food was the weight I gained. So that was a problem. And I love to eat. So I did. And I think I just because I got it from my family, it is, gaining weight or slow metabolism certainly has, strings to your heredity. So basically my parents were chubby as kids. I was chubby as a kid. And I just, by age 21, I was 50 pounds overweight, and I was fatter than my friends. I hated it. I had a roll on my tummy that I would scrunch up in my hands, and imagine cutting off, like you cut fat off the side of a steak. And so I had a lot of low self-esteem because of how I looked, but deeper than that as well. I didn't grow up with a strong sense of myself. So I was insecure. I lacked self-confidence, but the food and the weight was a big issue for me. And I was really plagued by this, obsession with sugar and carbs. And I would definitely call myself a binge eater, where I would, start to eat chips and I'd eat the whole bag. And then I'd be like, with your salty, you got to have sweet. So I'd go eat cookies or ice cream, and it would go on from there. And then all of a sudden, before I knew it, I felt totally sick. Totally pissed at myself. Why did I do that? I'm such a loser. Why can't I get control? What's going on? And so that just was a vicious cycle for me, and really, really frustrating. So basically that's kind of how I lived. And Of course I went to diets. Like the first thing you do when your weight's out of control is you're like, oh, let me go on a diet. But I'm one of these people who I diet for some time. I could last about 2 weeks. And then I just be crawling the walls. At first it's fun. You're like, I'm doing it, feeling good and looking good. People are commenting. But after a little while, and again, my threshold was 2 weeks, I just would be like, give me chocolate. Just give me some chocolate now. And I'd bust out, and then I'd end up binging, putting the weight back on. And it was this vicious cycle. And I just couldn't stop it. So even though I tried lots of diets, I didn't do well on them. I would always end up eating again. And same with, programs, exercise programs, other kinds of courses that I would take. I could do good for a little bit. And then I just kind of went to hell in a handbasket. So what I learned, and I basically found a mentor who taught me that emotional eating was that missing piece for me. Like, because people don't really talk a lot about it. And I learned that I had emotional connection with food. Like I was I knew what to eat. I wasn't stupid, like I knew that salads were better than pizza or hot dogs, but I was drawn to unhealthy foods because I was using them for emotional reasons. I was, kind of putting a blanket on my emotions, trying to make myself feel better by eating. And that's what got me into trouble time and time again. So thankfully, with that information, I was able to start a path of healing, on a deeper level, really my emotions and my stress and things that were causing the cravings that I had. Instead of just trying to control them by hook or by crook, I learned how to really dissolve them so I didn't have them anymore. So that's what happened for me. And I'm so blessed. That was many years ago. Like you said, many decades I've been doing this work. And I'm very blessed. 5 years ago, I wrote my book, Heal Your Hunger, 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. I did a TED Talk recently. It's got over 500,000 views on emotional eating. And I've been blessed to help, thousands of people with their compulsion to eat that has nothing to do with their, what's in their head about what to eat. We know what to eat. It's just following through on what we know. And that's the work I do.
Wow, that's a lot, and thank you for sharing the story. And you've touched on a lot of things, and I'm just going to break it a little bit in segments here. So the first thing is, I mean, you stated that when you were younger and you had something inherited where I guess the weight was there from the get go, and the food was just something that was part of it and you enjoyed it. And by the way, this is something that a lot of kids actually have, especially today. I think the obesity and the weight gain today is just more than ever. And of course, obesity being the highest end of it, but really it is a challenge. Even today's kids, you talked about pizza versus salad, one is healthier than another, but yet, all our kids today, I joke about, my kids, and I think the restaurant business is going to go out of business because your menu is limited. It's got 5 items on the menu. You take it here. So it's pizza, burger, fries, nuggets, and hot dogs. You mentioned a couple of them already. But it is really a true story, a true live thing that we live in today. But again, you said it, this is something that you've dealt with a while back. And you've done what most people would do, which is let's just diet. And I think that is the first thing what people go crazy with, right? I'm using the word crazy here a little bit extreme, but we all do that, right? The first thing you're like, oh my God, the weight is not there, I need to fix it. So first thing I'm going to cut everything. And typically what happens, to your point, you'll do it for as long as your body can, and then eventually your body can't continue anymore. We literally cannot deprive ourselves, from a lot of things. And we do it, doesn't matter what type of diet, there's so many of them, and they've been progressing and evolving over the last, couple of decades. And every day, like yesterday, I just had a show about, CMOS, and we talked about lectins and all this stuff. This is ongoing. There's always something new where, we hear a new way, new trend, and everybody gets into it, right? But the fact that is, you've tried that, it didn't work. And then you said it, when you come back, it's probably worse, because now you're like, all those cravings, that sugar deprivation, and all the stuff that you kind of missed, in the time, you just want to go for it. And now it's like, it's worse. And it's hard. It's very easy to gain weight, but it's super hard to actually lose any weight. I mean, I've been there myself. I've gained weight, I've lost weight, and for the most part, I've been maintaining. But there was a part of my life where I picked up about 50 pounds, just as you stated, literally. It took me almost more about 5 years to really get to what I needed, but about a year and a half to just get a little better. And then, slowly but surely, I was able to start, getting back in the gym and, eating the right way. And hopefully, eventually it worked out. And it's hard to maintain. The other part is, you were younger at the time, and so
Yeah.
the metabolism different, right? So you can probably work the weight differently and the diets differently and all that. But as we transform over the years, and like for me, for example, I hit my 50, my metabolism is really not the same as it used 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. I know it. I feel it. It is not the same. I say it, and it's not a secret, folks. Take it where you have it. If you're still young, make sure that you work it correctly. Do not, abuse your body. Do the right thing by it, because it will get harder as you get, in the age. And now, age is a number, as we say. So I'm not saying that it's the end of the line or whatever. No, exactly. I feel 21 right now in my mind, but I need to maintain the 21 age with the 21 body, and that's not working. And I think that's everybody. Going back to your main core discussion today is the emotional piece of it.
Yeah.
There's always, like you said, there was you felt some stuff that drove you, and the best way you felt comfort was the food. People do that in a lot of different scenarios. School, we live in a world where bullying, for example, is very common. We had multiple shows about bullying in school. And people sometimes they find themselves, in a shelter mode, and that's what they do. They compensate, right? We also have, for example, family problems can be another one, right? There's multiple things, peer pressure, sometimes relationships as we get older, right? Things happen and relationships happen, and people kind of like, they just get emotional and they compensate again with food. Sometimes weather can do it. Simple as that. You just sit, and you're just like, okay, I'm just going to keep some. You mentioned something about the potato chips or chip bag. Yeah, I don't know of anyone that starts that bag and really, closes it, before it's
Yeah,
end, right?
yeah.
I think once
Who wants a handful?
none. I mean, and I think there's chemistry in that stuff that makes you do that. I mean,
Yeah.
it just gives you a little bit of a kick, and then just you say enough, and then 2 minutes later, like, I need more. And,
Right.
and by the way, salt or sweet, same concept. And you're right. There's a combination of food out there that is really both. They have a lot of sugar, a lot of sweets, and it plays literally havoc with your system.
Yeah.
Your body just wants more of it. And we do that. We are conscious about it. At least that's what we know. Now I know you've done. You had your mentor and you worked that out. You figured it out. So guide us through that change. I mean, I know it's one thing to understand we have a mentor, but was there anything specific that helped you make that transition? Because I know this could not be possible easy for anyone without some time first and a lot of effort and energy you put in there. So you did put the work.
Yeah. What I want to do, I want to start by explaining a little bit more about emotional eating, because some people may be like, oh, I don't do that, and I didn't think I did either. I thought I just like food. Like, that's what I thought. I just like food. But it's hard, once you start hearing about it, it's hard to forget it. So I want to talk about it because I wanted to say, if somebody, if you don't think you're an emotional eater, the question is, do you ever eat to excess to where you feel bad? Do you eat to feel good and then it ends up making you feel bad? Okay, so that's an example. Do you obsess about your weight? Okay, so that's you. It has nothing to do with eating per se, but emotional eaters tend to be hyper preoccupied with their weight, what they're eating, how much they're eating, what it's doing to them, getting rid of what they ate. Do you perhaps have a real penchant for, especially for sweets, sugar. Sugar is highly addictive. Is sugar a problem for you? There are carbs a problem for you. Carbs metabolize as sugar in your body. So you might be addicted to the carbs just as much as sugar. Do you end up, do you go on diets? Like, are you a chronic dieter? If you're a chronic dieter, in the first diet didn't work, guess what? It's probably because of emotional eating. So if you keep needing that food on an emotional level. So do you have a lot of knowledge about nutrition? Maybe you're a nutritionist, maybe you're a dietitian or a trainer or whatever. You're not lacking in knowledge, but do you have trouble following through on what you know? And if you are a practitioner or a trainer, do you have guilt feelings that you don't do what you say? Like you're not walking your talk. that's a hard place to be, right? Because it's like we want to be the model for health, but if we're saying one thing and doing another, it compromises our effectiveness. So these are just some questions I asked just so people could start realizing, oh, maybe I am an emotional eater, because these are certainly signs. Maybe you're nighttime eating, your hardest time is at night, and when everything gets quiet and all of a sudden you're going to the kitchen wondering what else is there. Or maybe you go to the refrigerator 5 times of one evening, hoping something just jumped in there that will satisfy you. So these are just some questions to get people thinking. But I want to talk about, instead of, we know what unhealthy foods do to us. They make us fat, they make us feel bad, they give us cellulite on our body, they give us heart disease, diabetes, whatever. But I want to talk about what these unhealthy, like, why would we do that, right? Hurricane, like, why would we eat things that make our bodies hurt, right? It's like, what's that about? Well, I want to talk about what these same foods do for us, because obviously that's why we're eating them. There's a payoff. Okay, so I want to talk about the PEP test, and PEP is an acronym, PEP, and this is a way for people to start kind of tuning in, like saying, oh, maybe I am using these foods in an emotional way for emotional reasons. So the first P in PEP stands for painkiller. So we use food to numb our pain. Like, we don't want to feel something bad happens. We just want to check out. Okay. We want to numb painful feelings. And, everybody's done it. Some people do it more. Like I did a lot. But it really is, carbs and sugar, fat, my 3 favorite food groups, by the way. So carbs, sugar, and fat, if we're using these things, they're numbing our pain. They're taking the edge off. Okay. Life's not easy. We have financial issues, we have family issues, we have stress, we have, loss of jobs, we have a pandemic, we have a car breaking down, we have dysregulated children. It's like life is not easy. So how are we going to get through? And oftentimes we're depending on food to get us through. The E in PEP stands for escape. So we use food, most people listening are probably super responsible, taking care of their families, bringing home the bacon, and it's like, enough already. Like I need a retreat. I need a break. And so we get our goodies and we sit in front of the TV and we're like, just leave me alone. Like, I'm checking out, right? And we just want to break from life's responsibilities. Sometimes we want to break from our own brains, because emotional eaters tend to be overthinkers, where we're thinking too much about too many things, like, a nonstop. And that gets exhausting. So oftentimes the escape is from our own heads. That's why TV is so good, because it just sort of helps us check out. So that's another reason why we use food, right? It just helps us, like, just go to another world temporarily. And then we come back and we realize what we just did, right? And then we have more to escape from, more reality we want to get away from. But the last P in PEP stands for punishment, which seems counterintuitive, because it's like, no, I eat for reward. Like, I think all week long, I think about that special dinner I'm going to have, or that special, cake or whatever. It's like, I can't wait to have this reward. I deserve it. We do the I deserve it thing. And that's fine. But if you eat to excess and you end up feeling terrible and self-hating, and the next day you're bloated and you're just wearing sweatpants all day because you don't want anybody to see your rolls, or your bloat, well, come on, that's no reward. That's more of a punishment. Like, look what you just did to yourself. And so that begs the question, again, why would I do that to myself? In my experiences, overeaters tend to be overfeelers. So we feel guilty about everything. Okay. We're super hard on ourselves. And oftentimes we eat subconsciously to beat ourselves up. It's sort of like adding insult to injury. Didn't get that promotion. Sure, I'll drown my feelings with food, but then on the back end, there's a built-in punishment as well, where I'm ending up feeling worse than when I started the day. So these 3 things, the PEP stands again for painkiller, escape, and punishment. These are 3 ways that we use food for emotional reasons. Okay. And this is just to help people start realizing that it's not just that I like chocolate or French fries. There's more to it than that. So I think that's an important place to start. Another thing I want to mention is that it's really a spectrum and not everybody's in the same place. So I was like on the high end of the spectrum, which is really food addiction. So the emotional eating spectrum, it's like we're all emotional eaters. So everybody's somewhere on the spectrum. Okay. Like we all can go overboard now and then. But on the high end of the spectrum is really food addiction, where you can't stop. Once you start, you're going to town, you're going to binge, you're going to feel like crap, you're going to down 2,000 calories in a sitting, and then you're not necessarily going to stop or even go to the gym the next day. You're like, blow it off. I feel too sick to go to the gym. And then it's like, I'm never going to do that again. And you do it again. Okay. That's somebody who can't stop, can't pull back. And the whole spectrum of emotional eating, I have a quiz on my website, actually, which is good for people to take as a starting point. And you find out where you are on that spectrum. Because on the low end is someone with a good amount of control. And it's like, I eat a bag of potatoes. Like my partner, he eats like the only thing he's out of control with is potato chips. Like if he eats it, he will eat the whole bag. So he does that, but no, his weight always stays the same. He's like not obsessed with food. He just could care less when he eats. So he's really very low on the spectrum, but there's one thing he loses control, but otherwise, he just decides I'm not going to eat that, or he doesn't even like sweets. So he has a lot of control and very few consequences. Okay. Whereas someone on the high end of the spectrum, like me, has very little control and a lot of consequences. So if you're struggling with food weight for decades, and like you said, I was lucky early on in my life, I got a solution. But for most of my clients have been at it, they've been dieting for decades. I work with a lot of middle-aged women who have done the diets. They've done everything, absolutely everything. And they've beat their bodies up. Like they have joint pain, arthritis, they have diabetes or pre-diabetes, autoimmune gut issues. I mean, you feed enough crap to your gut's going to say, ouch, and start having issues. So it does accumulate. Like this problem doesn't get up and go away on its own. So the high end of the spectrum is somebody who has very little control to like scale back and say, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. No more potato chips for me. My boyfriend's like, I'm just not going to buy them. I just don't buy them. Well, sounds great. Like that was not, I bought them anyway. Like I'd say I'm not going to buy them. I buy them anyway. But anyway, so lack of control and a lot of consequences is on the high end of the spectrum. And again, my website, people go there, there's a free quiz and they can find out where they are on that spectrum. So that's a good places to start.
No, thank you. Actually, I'm looking at the site. But you're covering some real powerful stuff, and I love the pep. Right? I mean, it's as real as it gets. I mean, again, we said it. I don't think someone listening today or watching cannot relate to one level of the spectrum. I mean, you're right. We are from potentially very controlled environment type people. And then sometimes we're just on the extreme. And I've experienced both personally. I can tell you where I'm like at my peak, where I'm like aware of everything. I don't cheat and do it correctly, eat the right quantities, blah, 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 watch my calories. And I've had in the point where it's like, bags of chips, not one, not two. I get a little bit of everything. And you just like, it's like movie time, right? You just keep, do the Netflix, for a few hours, especially you mentioned Corona and the pandemic, that was brutal for some people. They could not even get out of the house. What does that to you? Nothing. I mean, for activity wise, you have zero. And some people are not, they were not fortunate, for example, to have outdoor space, especially like in New York City. If you lived in an apartment and you were locked down, you couldn't even leave to go to the streets. And a lot of people had that problem. And then you won't wind up watching TV, either arguing with your family or just kind of like, having a huddle, and watching a movie. And for you, I guess it will be a marathon of movies, and you just go and go and go. And when you watch something, we all have that craving. You go to movies. I don't think someone watching today or listening has not been in the movie theater and have not picked up a big popcorn bag and, what are those, buckets and, a little bit of Twizzlers maybe and some chocolate, whatever those things, the raisin ones. I mean, we all kind of like take, a little bit of a sweet stuff, and we the whole movie, you're munching. It's amazing. It never fails.
Right.
And then you have those big gulps, like the big cup, not even the small one. And of course, they make it easy because they give you all these free refills, and you just keep going. Oops, I'm gonna get some more. And we don't realize that. But what it does also, all this is all junk. We're just referring to junk right now, not even healthy food. Then you still have your regular meal, and some of us do like more than 3 meals sometimes. First, the breakfast, the lunch, and we go crazy at those. It is really rough. And so you're right. Pain, then the escape, to your point, we're trying to run from something and from our own guilt. And then finally, like we start punishing ourselves. Either way, we're still doing it wrong, I think. I mean, the problem is there's no way out of it unless we have guidance.
Yeah.
And I think that will take us to your book, and you've kind of figured out a formula for people. First of all, you were talking about your site. I'm looking at the site, and I almost got the quiz done before we got on the show, but I figured we were close to that, so I didn't do it. But you had the quiz there, and you also have the spectrum. But really, your steps. That's the golden formula. This is it. This is how you really make it happen, and this is how you control this thing, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's I mean, the good news is there is a way out. It's like I used to think cravings just hit me. They were willy-nilly, uncontrollable. They just hit me, and when they hit me, I was powerless to do anything to stop it. But what I know today and what I teach is that there's really, like, we take part in creating those cravings. It's not like we're leaves blowing in the breezes, whatever the ways the breeze blow, that's why we blow. Like, my experience is emotional eaters aren't just eating over their emotions, but they have a certain personality profile, excuse me, that drives them to have it drives the cravings. Excuse me. So that's a really important thing to realize, and I think it's good news, like the fact that I actually created my cravings. I wasn't just struck with cravings. I created them based on how I was living. As emotional eaters, we have this, I identified 24 personality traits. I call it the anatomy of the emotional eater, and I lay out all 24 in my book. Don't worry, I won't try to cover all 24 right now.
We want the book.
Yeah, but we'll cover a few of them. And so a good example is, the trait that I have identified as the most prevalent for emotional eaters is people pleasing. So we tend to get our validation from outside of us instead of giving it to ourselves. We tend to not have it for ourselves. We're super hard on ourselves. We're self-critical. So we're looking out there for other people to validate us, which comes at a price. It means that we're always saying yes. We're always afraid to displease. We always want people to think we're fabulous. So we say, sure, I'll take on that extra project. Sure, I'll make the cookies for the soccer team. Sure, I'll stay up all night pulling, doing this other thing, whatever. It's like we take on way too much. We overeaters tend to be overdoers. So we're running circles around everybody. We're stressed out. We're tired, and so this whole people pleasing thing, it drives our cravings because we're tired, we're exhausted, we're overstretched, and we have no time for ourselves. And then we're eating crappy food on the go because we haven't taken any time to sit down and have a meal or make a meal, and it comes at a cost, and that's emotional eating. So we think it's going to pay off to have all these people think we're wonderful, but we end up, having it backfire when we overeat and feel crappy and get sick and then can't be there for other people like we want to be. So not only that, we end up resentful as all get out, because we've been doing for everybody and nobody ever's people they barely notice. We're like pulling all-nighters and they're like, oh, thank you. And it's like, thank you. I just killed myself for this project, what are you talking about? So we end up, it's like it's a lose-lose situation, and we end up resentful, and that always leads to the I deserve it binge. Like, screw them. They're not going to appreciate me. I'll go, reward myself. So the point is, I'm trying to illustrate that we play a part in that. Like, if we don't have boundaries on our time, if we don't realize we're not super people, Superman and woman, we have to have boundaries on our time. We have to say no once in a while. We have to say, my plate is full, which is more true than people realize. We have to say, you know what, I need time for me. And that's not something we're used to doing. Like we feel like, oh, that's selfish. I got to run myself ragged, giving. No, all that means is our families, our spouses get like a bitchy, grumpy, totally worn out person in their life. Like, who wants that? So, and then we feel guilty, and then we beat ourselves up by eating. Like, oh, I snapped again. I didn't mean to, but I'm stressed out because I don't have boundaries in my time. So this is why it's not just about the eating, and a diet's not going to fix it. We have to fundamentally live differently. I often say it's a living problem, not an eating problem. Another downfall of emotional eaters is we don't speak up for ourselves. And this is partly stems from the people pleasing thing. We don't want anybody to be mad at us. So we don't speak up. We're always saying yes. We're so agreeable. But again, then we've stifled our voice, and the only way to really keep us shut up is to keep eating. Like, we stifle our voice and then we say nothing, but we have to keep eating to keep ourselves stifled. And it's not that other people are doing this to us. We're really not victims in this. This is something we have agency. It's not easy to speak up for ourselves when we don't have strong self-esteem or we're people pleasers, but these are the things that'll move the needle. We've got to start speaking up for ourselves. We have to start using our voice. We have to start, being who we are. That's not easy for us, but that's vital. Otherwise we're eating so we can just be a chameleon.
Tricia, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, you're like hitting on a big important piece of life and advice for people. You said it best. We tend to do everything for everybody else and discarding ourselves. Really, it's a disregard of who you are and your person, your health. I almost want to advise people to be selfish, although I don't want to be to sound that way. But to a degree, you need to be you, number one, first, because you said it. If you're not healthy, how can you possibly help those that are around you?
Yeah,
it starts with you. So sometimes we are so nice because we want, to your point, and this is I think a society today, because we're so surrounded with all the marketing and the media and what everybody wants you to look like and feel like and do, and so you always want to be like, I am subscribing to everybody's, tendencies or that's what we do, right? What's the cool thing going on today? And we do that. And you're right. Like at work, we want to be good for everybody because you don't want to be the person that no one wants to talk to. Like, this is the pain in the butt guy or the gal, right? So you want to do like, okay, I could do it. At work, especially. I mean, when you're in the beginning of your career path, that's usually where people take advantage of you. And, okay, sure. Are you available Saturday? Sure. Sunday, no problem.
Yeah.
Can you work extra hours? Of course. But they do that because they hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But they're just taking advantage of you. And believe me, I say it loud and clear. I've been doing I've been in my career path for 30 years and moved out a lot for many years. And I can tell you at this point in my life, I know for a fact, it doesn't matter what you do, when you do it, who you do it for. People will take advantage. People will take whatever they can from you, and you pretty much they can discard you any moment. and it is reality. And if we don't think about that and we don't face that reality, we'll be just fooling ourselves. And you're right, what's going to happen then, we get, oh my god, stress. And then one of the best way to deal with stress is, to your point, binge eating and all this stuff, and we go just crazy, and then we just gain that weight, and then now we hurt ourselves. Heart attacks, god forbid, all obesity can happen, diabetes can happen, blood pressure, everything. And then you're ruined. Your health is gone. You can't even do good for your family member, for your spouse, your significant other, your kids. It's over. And even for you. So Thank you for bringing that. I think that is a big piece of the discussion that people need to really be aware of. And some people may be aware of it, but sometimes there's not enough discussion about it. So the more the merrier. So
totally.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, totally. And it's sort of like, the classic example is putting your oxygen mask on first before you help a child. It's like when the flight attendant's telling us that, we're not like, that's selfish. We're like, oh, okay, makes sense. If you can't breathe, you can't help your kid breathe. Okay, I'll put mine on first, then I'll help my kid. It's logical. But we don't transfer that logic to our health and our self-care. And it is absolutely vital. Like when we're at our best, we can give more.
Yes.
We can actually give more.
Well, thank you. And by the way, it's funny you said that about the mask because I just flew on Sunday from vacation, and that
Oh,
first day it came up when they were giving us that announcement. It came out to me
yeah,
because it's always standard like, yes, if you don't do it, you can't help anybody else. So you got to help yourself first to be willing, able, and ready to assist. If not,
yeah,
it's over. So thank you for bringing that up. And it just like you said it, I visualized it. I just experienced it for real, a
yeah,
couple of days ago. But so now let's talk about your steps to
sure.
really to deal. Now we talked about some. You give us some reference as to like some of the conditioning, but now let's talk about the steps. I know we're crushed on time today, but we have about 10 minutes, I think. So
Yeah.
so I want to get some of the core of that, at least to give people a little bit of a direction. And then the ultimate goal is today, hopefully people watching and listening, please feel free to check out the book, the website, and reach out, to Tricia and see how she can help you and get all that, listen, we need help. And sometimes we don't admit it. I think everybody needs help. And
Yeah.
this is a form of getting help. We just make it available in a fun way. But really, you're listening to a show or any podcast for that matter, you'll pick up some stuff that can help you in your life. So take advantage of it. But beyond that, I mean, there are resources. Tricia is a resource. A book is almost a good guide for helping people and changing and transforming their life for better. So why not? So let's talk about those 7 steps.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about it, in my discussion on our discussion on self-care. We tend to jump out of bed and start reacting to everything and all the demands around us. And so the first step is really getting still and quiet and centered. Okay. So the 7 steps are called the 7 C's for healing. So they all start with C, but one of them is centeredness. And we have to change our stress. Like so much of our emotional eating is stress eating, which means we have to do something to be less stressed. Again, putting boundaries on our time is one of those things. But another thing is starting a day with a morning routine where you can get centered. And when I say centered, I mean really being with yourself, being with your spiritual source, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it. I call it putting money in your spiritual bank account. Like start first thing in the morning, getting connected with the divine, and I think we all have the divine, that still small voice within. But if we're running around, just acting like crazy people, we're not going to hear that voice. We're not going to, there is an internal GPS ready and waiting for us every single day to guide us and protect us and tell us where the accidents are that we can avoid, tell us, which route is the best route. This intuition, this inspiration, this is all within us if we'll connect. But we don't. We go running around, not listening, stuffing that still small voice. So I say spend some time in the morning with meditation, stretching, yoga, breathing, reading the Bible, reading spiritual literature, things that can help you, not all those things at once. I'm just saying something that helps you drop into your spirit, who you are, that divine guidance system that will help you throughout the day. It's working smarter instead of harder. So much of the time, we're just trying to do everything through personal will. You don't have to work that hard. There is a beautiful spirit waiting to guide us and direct us. But we have to spend time. We have to invest in that, putting money in our spiritual bank account. Then you can take withdrawals later in the day when you're stressed out, later in the day when you don't know what to do, or somebody crosses you or whatever. You've got something to turn to. So that's vital. Like I have a meditation practice I do twice a day. I read spiritual literature every day. I have a few little daily readers, a little bit from the Bible, and I do these because it fills my cup.
Mm-hmm.
I have to fill my cup, and then I've got something to give. If I'm just like jumping around trying to give to people without filling my cup, I'm empty, and then I'm reaching for chocolate and coffee and things to keep me going. So there's just a more natural, healthy way to energize our bodies, help us feel connected, that have no adverse side effects. So getting centered is big. Okay. Another one, I call it clean eating. I'm not a nutritionist. I feel like a lot of people who have dieted chronically have gotten some basic advice, vegetables, healthy proteins, healthy fats, slow metabolizing carbs. Like that's pretty much like, just do that and you'll be fine. How do you do that? Not eat crap, not stop at 7-Eleven for crap. Well, my experience is the only real food advice I give, because we have a lot of, knowledge already, is what I call 3-meal magic. And I coined that phrase 3-meal magic. It's eating 3 meals with nothing in between. Okay. And it's just a simple, balanced, back to basics, self-caring way to eat. Now, if you're super training for a triathlon or, running a marathon, whatever, of course, you're going to need some additional food or carbs or whatever. But for their average person, 3 meals is self-caring, self-loving, balanced. And that's what I do. I eat about the same amount for every meal. So my body knows what full feels like, because it's generally eating the same amount, and also the no eating between meals is usually where all the snacky foods, the snacky, unhealthy foods, the nuts, the chips, the chocolates, the grabbing for the candies in the bowl, all that happens in between meals. But if you're just sticking to what goes on the plate that's eaten with a knife and a fork, you're cutting out so much crap. So that alone, it can be, for my new clients, that alone can be revolutionary. It's like, OMG, I had no idea how much I was eating, when you stop snacking in between. So that's a big one too, that clean eating. Another one, I teach communication skills, so that people can learn how to speak up for themselves. People don't know. Like if you've been people pleasing for decades, you literally don't know how to speak up for yourself. So I teach that as well. There's so much. It's hard to fit it, obviously, in a podcast interview, but I do lay out a lot in my book, and that's a great place to start. And by the way, the book, it's on Amazon, but it's also on Audible. I did dictate my book a couple of years ago, and so that's a nice way to, it's like a 5-hour listen.
Nice. Well, we're coming to the end of the show, and definitely the site is healyourhunger.com, right? So the book also is, the name of the book is Heal Your Hunger, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes. Heal, HEAL, Heal Your Hunger.
All right. So we have that. And just before we end, first of all, thank you for being. And I know we ran a quick one. This one is a lot of stuff in a very little time, but I think we've covered quite a bit, and people probably would benefit from this. And hopefully by reaching out and checking out the site, they'll get more and potentially get in the book. Any last words of wisdom or advice you want to just leave our audiences with today?
Yeah. Well, as I said, my TEDx talk came out. It's called Emotional Eating. What if weight loss isn't about the food? So you can use my name and just look up TEDx on YouTube. And that's a nice kind of 14-minute synopsis of everything I know, basically.
Perfect. Well, I'm gonna put all that in the description of the show.
Great.
So Tricia, thank you so much for being with us today. I know you have to go and you have other commitments. Much appreciated, folks.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
My pleasure, and hopefully people will benefit literally from this. Folks, thank you for being with us, for watching and listening in. I'm your host, Hurricane H. We'll talk soon. New day, new show, new guest. Bye for now. Ciao, ciao.